right. Is anyone still here? Are you still here, Siginaldo? Am I back? Oh my goodness, that was really freaky. I did a little recording test, and it seemed to what I did seemed to fix it in the recording, but I'm not sure if the stream has decided to do something weird, if it's decided to still be a problem. I guess I can listen to myself again. Let's do that. Let's do that, Katie. Sounds great now. Oh, good. Okay, I can hear it. Whew! Oh my goodness. Kitty decided to get up. She was in a better position before. Oh, are you moving? Okay, that works for me. Oh my goodness. Well, hopefully the stream can continue on without issue now. Thanks. Yeah, it was very frustrating. Alright, so that does mean that we probably won't get to read as much as we could have if things worked like normal, but things fixed now. Let us begin. Alright, but yes, if you were just tuning into the new stream or you're watching only this VOD, we're reading Pride and Prejudice today. Come hell or high water, we're reading Pride and Prejudice, but there were audio issues and I had to stop the stream to fix them. Oh yeah, I don't know if I need to go over what I went over before, but basically, Jane is sick, and she's sick at Mr. Bingley's place. Elizabeth is taking care of her. Mr. Bingley's sisters ain't being so nice, and Mr. Darcy is now into Elizabeth, and they were chatting about poetry last time. So there's your speed run summary. All right, let's go. Chapter 10. The day passed much as the day before had done. Mrs. Hurst and Miss Bingley had spent some hours of the morning with the invalid, who continued, though slowly, to mend, and in the evening Elizabeth joined their party in the drawing-room. The loo table, however, did not appear, and I looked up what a loo table is, and it is like a small circular table with 3 legs, or it's like one stalk and then 3 legs, and it was used for a game called Loo, and you can fold it up, which is kind of neat. So it's like a card table of the 1800s. Alright. Mr. Darcy was writing, and Miss Bingley, seated near him, was watching the progress of his letter, and repeatedly calling off his attention by messages to his sister. Mr. Hurst and Mr. Bingley were at piquet, and Mrs. Hurst was observing their game. What is Mr. Darcy writing? Is he writing a poem for Miss Elizabeth? Is he writing something else? Is he working on a novel? But once again, they all hate him, but he just seems very relatable to me. Okay, well, no, actually it does say the letter, so he's writing a letter. We don't know who to, but we know it's a letter. Well, hi, are you gonna mess things up, baby? Yeah, yes you are. Yes you are. Yes, so he's writing a letter, calling off his attention by messages to his sister. I don't know what that means, because Mr. Darcy's sister isn't... Hi, kitty. not what I would have expected when hearing Lou. Yes, exactly. I've only heard that. Oh, there's an incoming ad. Let me know when the ad is over. But yeah, I was like thinking that it's like a bathroom thing. Like that's what I always hear of. It's like, I'll go to the loo, and it's like the bathroom table. And here's the table for you to go potty on. But yeah, so I don't know going back down, what it means, like, calling off his attention by messages to his sister, because I don't recall Mr. Darcy's sister being there, just Mr. Bingley's, and so I'm a little confused, by that. You can just see the little pom-pom of a tail. Alright, 9 seconds left. I'll wait a second. I really shoulda, well, goodbye. Oh, you didn't get the ad? You don't have an ad? Alright. Nice. Yeah, I really should have unless it's still coming, maybe so. Tell me if you get an ad, and I'll make sure to... Oh, it's here. Alright.
Hi, kitty.
Yeah, I really should have made sure to turn them off for this stream, because it is especially bad to have ads when you're trying to read something. Ad jump scare. It's like, oh, it's fine. It's like you're walking around the corner like, no monsters here, and then one jumps out. I don't think I can turn them off midstream. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Are you back?
Oh, hello. Oh, hello, kitty.
Can I show her?
Yeah, there's the kitty face. Oh, that's the kitty face. You're so cute. You're so cute.
Yay, you're back. Alright, we can continue if the kitty will let us. Baby. Are you gonna hold my book open for me? What's your plan? Alright. Okay. Elizabeth took up some needlework. Oh, I just realized the position of my camera might make this hard. Might have to zoom out a little bit. Oh no. Oh no. Huh, okay. I hit the wrong thing. Okay, yeah, I guess you can see that. All right, maybe. Yeah, I think that zoomed in is a little too much. Okay, Elizabeth took up some needlework and was sufficiently amused in attending to what passed between Darcy and his companion. The perpetual commendations of the lady, either on his handwriting or on the evenness of his lines, or on the length of his letter, with the perfect unconcern with her praises were received, formed a curious dialogue, and was exactly in unison with her opinion of each. Oh, I feel like I'm maybe doing this during the day means that my brain isn't at full capacity, because I feel like I'm getting confused on... I've only read 2 paragraphs, and I've been confused by both of them. Oh, no. Okay. Okay, so Elizabeth, she's working on needlework, and then she is watching Darcy and his companion. I don't know if that's Miss Bingley or his sister that we haven't been introduced to. And she's commenting on his handwriting and how even his lines are, and praising him, I guess. Maybe not Miss Bingley. She's not roasting him. She's praising him. And then Oh, and so I think the last sentence is saying Elizabeth agrees with what this person is saying. I think. Kitty, do you want out?
No, yeah, okay, you're just sitting there.
All right. And I don't know who is talking. How delighted Miss Darcy will be to receive such a letter. Okay. Miss Darcy. So I guess the letter is to his sister, and it's Miss Bingley talking. So why does it say, like, repeatedly calling off his attention by messages to his sister? By messages to his sister doesn't sound like, oh, he's writing to his sister. It sounds like she's calling him away by, like, by giving him messages to his sister, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't matter. We have our question answered. The letter is to his sister. All right. How delighted Miss Darcy will be to receive such a letter. He made no answer. You write uncommonly fast. You are mistaken. I write rather slowly. How many letters you must have occasion to write in the... Oh no. Oh no. Here. I might have to. Yeah. In the course of a year. Letters of business, too. How odious I should think them. It is fortunate, then, that they fall to my lot instead of to yours. Pray tell your sister that I long to see her. I have already told her so once by your desire. I'm afraid you do not like your pen. Let me mend it for you. I mend pens remarkably well. Thank you, but I always mend my own. How can you contrive to write so even? He was silent. Tell your sister I am delighted to hear of her improvement on the harp, and pray let her know that I am quite in raptures with her beautiful little design for a table, and I think it infinitely superior to Miss Grantley's. Will you give me leave to defer your raptures till I write again? At present I have not room to do them justice. So I guess raptures in this case means just like your excitement or something, like, hey, can you stop giving me stuff to write about, or stop talking to me, just let me write. Can I zoom in just ever so slightly? I guess that works. Oh, it is of no consequence. I shall see her in January. But do you always write such charming long letters to her, Mr. Darcy? Miss Bingley did not seem this nice last time we saw her. But I don't think it's Elizabeth, because she wouldn't be this familiar with him. So I think I'm going to keep reading it as Miss Bingley, but I'm unsure who's talking. They are generally long, but whether always charming, it is not for me to determine. That is true. It is a rule with me that a person who can write a long letter with ease cannot write at all. Why did I read it like that? Who can write a long letter with ease cannot write ill. So if you can write a long letter, you can't write anything bad. I'm gonna have to disagree with that one. Like, yeah, it's a good skill to be able to write a long letter, but it kind of goes back to I think it's a Mark Twain quote of, I would have written you a shorter letter if only I had the time. So in some ways it takes even more skill to write something short, and so it kind of depends, because sometimes it's like you can't write well, and so you write something short, and sometimes it's you write very well, and so you're able to shorten it. So I disagree with the statement that if you can write a long letter, you can't write anything wrong. Okay, so that it was Miss Bingley. That will not do for a compliment to Darcy, Caroline, cried her brother, because he does not write with ease. He studies too much for words of 4 syllables. Do not you, Darcy? What do you mean too much for words of 4 syllables? Is he saying, like, he studies a lot, but, like, he doesn't speak with long words? He doesn't write with long words? Oh boy. Okay, there we go. My style of writing is very different from yours. Oh, cried Miss Bingley, Charles writes in the most careless way imaginable. He leaves out half his words and blots the rest. My ideas flow so rapidly that I have not time to express them, by which means my letters sometimes convey no ideas at all to my correspondents. At least he's honest about it. He's like, yeah, I have so many ideas that sometimes I just say nothing at all. I feel like some folks can relate. Alright. Your humility, Mr. Bingley, said Elizabeth, must disarm reproof. Nothing is more deceitful, said Darcy, than the appearance of humility. It is often only carelessness of opinion, and sometimes an indirect boast. And so that's what he's saying. So he's saying, like, that Mr. Bingley is just, like, throws out his opinions carelessly, and, like, he's not actually being humble because he's trying to boast. The indirect boast, for you are really proud of your defects in writing, because you consider them as proceeding from a rapidity of thought. I missed something. And which of the two do you call my little recent piece of modesty? The indirect boast, for you are really proud of your defects in writing, because you consider them as proceeding from rapidity of thought and carelessness of execution, which, if not estimable, you think at least highly interesting. The power of doing anything with quickness is always much prized by the possessor, and often without any attention to the imperfection of the performance. When you told Mrs. Bennet this morning that if you ever resolved on quitting Netherfield, you should be gone in 5 minutes, you meant it to be a sort of panegyric of compliment to yourself. And yet, what is there so very laudable in a precipitance which must leave very necessary business undone, and can be of no real advantage to yourself or anyone else? Let me look that up. A lofty oration or writing in praise of a person or thing, eulogy, formal or elaborate praise. Panegyric. Okay, panegyric. So it is just like formal praise. Okay, let me reread that because once again I feel a bit lost. So like Mr. Bingley likes that he is kind of like not very good at writing, and that he's very fast because he thinks it's a good thing that he thinks fast. And I don't know if what estimable means in this context. It seems like he's saying, like, if it's not like praiseworthy, at least it's interesting that like you think fast, and that's how you think of yourself. And like the power of doing things quickly is often praised by the possessor. So that is I think often true, that people who do things fast are often proud of the fact that they do things fast, even if that's actually not something they should be proud of. And then and they don't really care about how perfect the performance is. So yeah, when he told Mrs. Bennet this morning, because they did stop by this morning, that he'd be gone in 5 minutes, he meant it as like a formal praise to himself. Yeah, and so he's saying, like, what's so great about, like, being able to leave your house fast? Like, it must leave the necessary business undone, and it's only an advantage to you, not to anybody else. Which totally makes sense. I was kind of thinking that when he was saying that. I was like, what? Like, you can leave in 5 minutes? Is that meant to be a good thing? So it seems like, so something that we talk about in my house is that my mom is what we call an achiever. If I remember correctly, it's from like the Strength Finders test. and I'm a perfectionist, and so she just wants to get things done, and I want to get them done perfectly. And that very much feels like the sort of situation going here, that Mr. Bingley just wants to get stuff done, and in his case, he wants it done fast. And Mr. Darcy is more like, oh, you have to take care, and you have to do it more, you have to care about the execution and do it perfectly, which is interesting. Alright. Nay, cried Bingley, this is too much, to remember at night all the foolish things that were said in the morning, and yet, upon my honour, I believed what I said to myself to be true, and I believe it at this moment. At least, therefore, I did not assume the character of needless precipitance merely to shew off before the ladies. Okay. So, I said that this morning. Why are you bringing it up now in the evening? Why are you bringing up my failings from this morning? Oh, that would be, I feel like we could totally say that today. It's just like, oh yeah, remember what you said this morning? Why are you bringing up my failings from this morning? And then he's saying, like, I believe it to be true. I believe I would leave in 5 minutes. And I wasn't trying to just show off for the ladies, I think is what he's saying. Like, it's actually true. I dare say you believed it, but I am by no means convinced that you would be gone with such celerity. Your conduct would be quite as dependent on chance that of any man I know. And if, as you were mounting your horse, a friend were to say, Bingley, you had better stay till next week, you would probably do it. You would probably not go, and at another word, might stay a month. Which also seems to corroborate the introvert-extrovert idea, where it seems like Bingley's the extrovert, he loves to party, and so if somebody comes, he's like, oh yeah, I'd be out in 5 minutes, and then if somebody comes up to him, he's like, oh, like, stay, Bingley, stay another week. He's like, I can't say no to you, random stranger, I'll stay, you know. And so I guess he's kind of maybe either it's kind of that extrovert thing where he loves people and people's opinions and stuff, or maybe he's kind of flip-floppy, that he's willing to change his opinion very fast. You have only proved by this, cried Elizabeth, that Mr. Bingley did not do justice to his own disposition. You've shown him off now much more than he did himself. I'm exceedingly grateful, said Bingley, by your converting what my friend says into a compliment on the sweetness of my temper. But I am afraid you are giving it a turn which that gentleman did by no means intend, for you would certainly think the better of me if, under such a circumstance, I were to give a flat denial, and ride off as fast as I could. Yeah, I didn't think it was a compliment either. It seemed like an insult. Good. And so, so it's saying, like, he would think better of me if, like, I said, I will be gone in 5 minutes, and then somebody shows up and is like, oh, like, stay, Bingley. He's like, I can't say no to you. Like, if instead he's just like, no, I'm gone, and leaves, like, Bingley, or, Darcy would think better of him. I mean, that is what it sounded like. He was like, yeah, be true to your word. Do what you say what you do, kind of thing. Would Mr. Darcy then consider the rashness of your original intention as atoned for by an obstinacy in adhering to it? Yes, okay. I think that's what he's saying. Upon my word, I cannot exactly explain the matter. Darcy must speak for himself. Well, good on him, letting him speak for himself. You expect me to account for opinions which you choose to call mine. I mean, you said them! What do you mean? You expect me to account for opinions which you choose to call mine, but which I have never acknowledged. Allowing the case, however, to stand according to your representation, you must remember, Miss Bennet, that the friend who is supposed to desire his return to the house and the delay of his plan has merely desired it, asked it without offering one argument in favor of its propriety. I guess maybe what he was saying is, like, you know, that Mr. Bingley said, oh, like, he'd feel better if I just up and left. And he's like, I didn't say that, you know, that's what you're talking for me. Yeah, I'm not sure I get that last sentence. The friend who is supposed to desire his return to the house, he's supposed to want to go back to Netherfield, and the delay of his plan to leave Netherfield has merely desired to go back. Asked it without offering one argument in favor of its propriety. So, I guess what it's, I don't know for sure, but I guess what it's saying is that if somebody came to, he's like, I'm going to be gone in 5 minutes. And then somebody comes up to him and is like, no, you're like, hey, I want you to stay. And then he's like, sure, I'll stay. And so, and Mr. Darcy is saying, like, oh, like, if he wants to stay because the person told him to stay, that's just, like, his desire. That's not the plan. And that doesn't mean it's better, you know, I think. Yeah, come on. Maybe I'll do that. To yield readily, easily, to the persuasion of a friend is no merit with you. To yield without conviction is no compliment to the understanding of either. So Bingley is saying, hey, like, yielding to your friend is to be commended. And Mr. Darcy is like, well, if you have no conviction or reason to yield to the friend, that's not actually a compliment. That's not actually a good thing. All right. You appear to me, Mr. Darcy, to allow nothing for the influence... Oh, I don't know. That could be Elizabeth, that could be Bingley, I'm not sure. You appear to me, Mr. Darcy, to allow nothing for the influence of friendship and affection. A regard for the requester would often make one readily yield to a request, without waiting for arguments to reason one into it. Okay, so he's saying, if a friend asks, you should do it, because they're your friend, and not because there's, like, you made a pros and cons list. I'm not particularly speaking of such a case as you have supposed about... Oh, it is Elizabeth. Okay. You appear to me, Mr. Darcy, to allow nothing for the influence of friendship and affection. A regard for the requester would often make one readily yield to a request, without waiting for arguments to reason one into it. I'm not particularly speaking of such a case as you have supposed about Mr. Bingley. We may as well wait, perhaps, till the circumstance occurs, before we discuss the discretion of his behaviour thereupon. But in general and ordinary cases between friend and friend, where one of them is desired by the other to change a resolution of no very great moment, should you think ill of that person for complying with the desire without waiting to be argued into it? I feel like I could argue against the no very great moment if it's moving out of your house. That's a pretty great moment. Will it not be advisable, before we proceed on this subject, to arrange with rather more precision the degree of importance which is to appertain to this request, as well as the degree of intimacy subsisting between the parties? So it's important how close they are. That kind of depends, which definitely is true. Like, if a stranger is like, hey, stay, that probably shouldn't have as much weight as, like, your brother saying it. By all means, cried Bingley, let us hear all the particulars, not forgetting their comparative height and size, for that will have more weight in the argument, Miss Bennet, than you may be aware of. I assure you that if Darcy were not such a great tall fellow in comparison with myself, I should not pay him half so much deference. I declare I do not know a more awful object than Darcy on particular occasions. Yeah. And in particular places, at his own house especially, and of a Sunday evening when he has nothing to do. Wait. So, if Darcy were not so tall, I wouldn't care what he had to say. Is that what he's saying? That's so weird. It's like, I wouldn't be friends with him if he wasn't tall. Wouldn't care what he had to say if he wasn't tall. Unless that's just a joke and I'm not getting the joke. And awful, because it has the E, makes me wonder if it means like full of awe, like awesome, like, oh, you can awe over him. You can why am I blanking on how to phrase that? Like, he just, what is up with my brain? But I think you got it. He's just, it's not a negative thing. I think is what's going on, is that it's not saying, oh, like, awful as we think about it, but awful as in, like, oh, ha, he's cool. I don't know what he's talking about, like the Sunday evening, though. Alright, Mr. Darcy smiled, but Elizabeth thought she could perceive that he was rather offended, and therefore checked her laugh. Miss Bingley warmly resented the indignity he had received in an expostulation with her brother for talking such nonsense. I see your design, Bingley, said his friend. You dislike an argument and want to silence this. Perhaps I do. Arguments are too much like disputes. I would say they're synonyms. If you and Miss Bennet will defer yours till I'm out of the room, I shall be very thankful. And then you may say whatever you like of me. That's kind of awesome. It's like, I don't really want to talk about this. If you want to talk about me when I'm out of the room, that's fine. Go ahead. What you ask, said Elizabeth, is no sacrifice on my side. Mr. Darcy had much better finish his letter. Mr. Darcy took her advice and did finish his letter. I don't know if that's meant to be funny, but it's just like, oh yes, Mr. Darcy must finish his letter. Mr. Darcy did, in fact, finish his letter. When that business was over, he applied to Miss Bingley and Elizabeth for the indulgence of some music. Miss Bingley moved with alacrity to the pianoforte, and after a polite request that Elizabeth would lead the way, which the other as politely and more earnestly negatived, she seated herself. I've never heard the word negatived in that word in that way. So it's like saying no. It's like a denial, but negatived. In his pianoforte, the piano room, I guess. Mrs. Hurst sang with her sister, and while they were thus employed, Elizabeth could not help observing, as she turned over some music books that lay on the instrument, how frequently Mr. Darcy's eyes were fixed on her. Ooh, she's starting to see. She hardly knew how to suppose that she could be an object of admiration to so great a man. Does she actually think he's great now? And yet, that he should look at her because he disliked her was still more strange. She could only imagine, however, at last, that she drew his notice because there was something about her more wrong and reprehensible, according to his ideas of right, than in any other person present. The supposition did not pain her. She liked him too little to care for his approbation. That's so funny that it's like, it's weird that he'd be looking at me, because he like told me I was tolerable, so he told me he didn't really like me, and so why is he looking at me? And then she's like, I figured it out. It's not just that he dislikes me, it's that I'm so reprehensible in his eyes and so much more than anyone else in this room, that that's why he's looking at me. And she's like, whatever, I don't like him either. But actually he's like making puppy dog eyes at her from across the room. That's funny. Let's see. After playing some Italian songs, Miss Bingley, oh no. Miss Bingley varied the charm by a lively Scotch air, and soon afterwards Mr. Darcy, drawing near Elizabeth, said to her, "Do not you feel a great inclination, Miss Bennet, to seize such an opportunity of dancing a reel?" She smiled, but made no answer. He repeated the question with some surprise at her silence. "Oh," said she, I heard you before, but I could not immediately determine what to say in reply. That's fair. I don't know if she's, being coy with him, but I feel that vibe. You wanted me, I know, to say yes, that you might have the pleasure of despising my taste, but I always delight in overthrowing those kinds of schemes and cheating a person of their premeditated contempt. I've therefore made up my mind to tell you that I do not want to dance a reel at all, and now despise me if you dare. So she thinks that he asked that. I don't know what dance a reel means other than, like, maybe he's asking her to dance. And she's like, no thanks, like, I see your little scheme, buddy. Like, you want me to dance so you can criticize me. Well, no, I'm not giving into that, because, and you can hate me if you want. And he's just likes her. That's cute. Alright, and now, despise me if you dare. Indeed, I do not dare. Elizabeth, having rather expected to affront him, was amazed at his gallantry. But there was a mixture of sweetness and archness in her manner, which made it difficult for her to affront anybody. And Darcy had never been so bewitched by any woman as he was by her. He really believed that, were it not for the inferiority of her connections, he should be in some danger. What does that mean? Does it mean, like, some danger of actually loving her, or some danger of something else, like monetary, or like, her mom is gonna come kill him or something? Let's see. Miss Bingley saw, or suspected, enough to be jealous, and her great anxiety for the recovery of her dear friend Jane received some assistance from her desire of getting rid of Elizabeth. Okay, I don't know how I didn't pick up on that. So, Miss Bingley, the non-married one, I thought they were both engaged. I thought one of them was engaged and the other one was married, but maybe I'm wrong. And I think I heard a meow. Kitty meow? No, I did not. I did not in fact hear a meow. So yeah, I don't know how I didn't pick up on that, but it seems like Miss Bingley is in love with Mr. Darcy, and so that's why she's maybe not too mad about Jane, but she doesn't like Elizabeth because Mr. Darcy likes Elizabeth, and he's told her that. Very interesting. And that would make more sense as to why she's nice about the letter. She often tried to provoke Darcy into disliking her guest by talking of their supposed marriage and planning his happiness in such an alliance. I hope, said she, as they were walking together in the shrubbery the next day. I gave Mrs. Hurst the Valley Girl voice, but I think maybe I should give Miss Bingley the Valley Girl voice. I hope, she said, as they were walking together in the shrubbery the next day, you'll give your mother-in-law a few hints when this desirable event takes place, as to the advantage of holding her tongue, and if you can compass it, do cure the younger girls of running after the officers. And if I may mention so delicate a subject, endeavor to check that little something bordering on conceit and impertinence which your lady possesses. I think it's called prejudice. Have you anything else to propose for my domestic felicity? Oh, yes. Do let the portraits of your uncle and Aunt Phillips be placed in the gallery at Pemberley. Put them next to your great-uncle, the judge. They are in the same profession, only in different lines. If they're his relatives, I'm sure, unless it's Elizabeth's relatives, but if they're his relatives, he'd know. They're in the same profession, only in different lines. As for your Elizabeth's picture, you must not attempt to have it taken, for what painter could do justice to those beautiful eyes? It would not be easy indeed. I was gonna say, I was like, I think that's a swing and a miss in terms of an insult. Though these probably all are. It would not be easy indeed to catch their expression, but their color and shape, and the eyelashes, so remarkably fine, might be copied. At that moment, they were met from another walk. Yo, kitty.
Come on, get off the keyboard, baby.
You gonna rub against the book instead?
Baby. I can't read with you there, baby.
Oh no, now you're gonna get even more in the way. There's so much fluff. It's just too much fluff to read past.
Oh, goodness, meow. It's just too much fluff.
It's like, pay attention to me.
I will get in the way. Pay attention to me.
Silly cat. Silly cat, and she's even got her little paws on it. Oh, kitty. There we go. At that moment, they were met from another walk by Mrs. Baby. I can't read the name. I know it's Elizabeth, but who's the other person? Who's the other person they met? Kitty?
Who is it? Can I take it?
Can I just... No, I don't want to do that. No. Kitty. Oh. Kitty Boo, I think I need to actually pick you up and take you off. Oh, there we go. Yeah, she was messing with stuff on the keyboard. Alright. Okay. At that moment, they were met from another walk by Mrs. Hurst and Elizabeth herself. I did not know that you intended to walk, said Miss Bingley in some confusion, lest they had been overheard. I didn't know that you, walked places. I didn't realize that that's what your legs were for. Now that I gave her the Valley Girl voice, I don't know what voice to give her. I guess I could try and do maybe a lower Valley Girl voice. You used us abominably ill, answered Mrs. Hurst, in running away without telling us that you were coming out. Then, taking the disengaged arm of Mr. Darcy. The disengaged arm! That just seems like, yeah, disengage arm. Oh no, I lost my place. Then, taking the disengaged arm of Mr. Darcy, she left Elizabeth to walk by herself. The path just admitted 3. Mr. Darcy felt their rudeness and immediately said, "This walk is not wide enough for our party. We had better go into the avenue." So, so I guess Mrs. Hurst was, left Elizabeth and was like, oh yeah, it's not big enough for all of us to walk, so I'm gonna join them. But Elizabeth, who had not the least inclination to remain with them, laughingly answered, No, stay where you are. You are charmingly grouped, and appear to uncommon advantage. The picturesque would be spoilt by admitting a 4th. Goodbye. She then ran gaily off, rejoicing as she rambled about in the hope of being at home again in a day or 2. Jane was already so much recovered as to intend leaving her room for a couple of hours that evening. She's doing so well, she can actually leave the room. Okay, well, this chapter isn't too long. Granted, I stop a lot, so I don't know what that'll do, but hopefully we can get through another chapter before I need to go. Alright, and I think I set an alarm that I think is about to go off, so turn that one off. Alright, that is the correct place, right?
Meow.
Nope, that's not. This is. Alright. Chapter 11. When the ladies removed after dinner, Elizabeth ran up to her sister, and seeing her well guarded from cold, attended to her in the drawing room, where she was welcomed by her two friends with many professions of pleasure. And Elizabeth had never seen them so agreeable as they were during the hour which passed before the gentlemen appeared. Their powers of conversation were considerable. They could describe an entertainment with accuracy, relate an anecdote with humor, and laugh at their acquaintance with spirit. I might want to see what happens. Yeah, I think I'm going to take that off so that it doesn't cover up a little bit of the page, because I already am having to maneuver it. Okay, so these are two unnamed friends, I guess. When the gentleman entered, Jane was no longer the first object Miss Bingley's eyes were instantly turned towards. Darcy and... what? Oh, okay. When the gentleman entered, Jane was no longer the first object. Miss Bingley's eyes were instantly turned towards Darcy, and she had something to say to him before he had advanced many steps. He addressed himself directly to Miss Bennet with a polite congratulation. Mr. Hurst also made her a slight bow and said he was very glad, but diffuseness and warmth remained for Bingley's salutation. He was full of joy and attention. The first half hour was spent in piling up the fire, lest she should suffer from the change of room, and she removed at his desire to the other side of the fireplace, that she might be further from the door. He then sat down by her and talked scarcely to anyone else. Elizabeth, at work in the opposite corner, saw it all with great delight. Okay, hang on. I do love that Miss Bingley's like, "Hi, Darcy," and then he, like, very pointedly turns to Elizabeth. Oh, I see. So Jane and Mr. Bingley are talking. That's all the last bit meant. Okay. When tea was over, Mr. Hurst reminded his sister-in-law of the card table, but in vain. Why is everybody obsessed with this card table?
Kitty boo, what you doing?
I guess I can still read it from here.
Yes, I can. Your plot is in vain.
She had obtained private intelligence that Mr. Darcy did not wish for cards, and Mr. Hurst soon found...
Oh no, that's a kitty butt. That's a kitty butt in the way.
There we go. Okay. Mr. Hurst soon found even his open petition rejected. She assured him that no one intended to play, and the silence of the whole party on the subject seemed to justify her. Wait, so Mr. Hurst is like, "Hey, you guys want to play cards?" And Mr. Darcy's like, "No, I don't." And then, Elizabeth is like, "Don't worry, it's okay, buddy. None of us wants to play cards." Mr. Hurst had therefore nothing to do but to stretch himself on one of the sofas and go to sleep. Anybody want to play cards? No. Well, I'm gonna take a nap. Darcy took up a book. Miss Bingley did the same, and Mrs. Hurst, principally occupied in playing with her bracelets and rings, joined now and then in her brother's conversation with Miss Bennet. Miss Bingley's attention was quite as much engaged in watching Mr. Darcy's progress through his book as in reading her own, and she was perpetually either making some inquiry... Oh no, this is gonna be hard. Can I zoom out a bit? Okay, and she was perpetually making some inquiry or looking at his page. She could not win him, however, to any conversation. He merely answered her question and read on, at length quite exhausted by the attempt to be amused with her own book, which she had only chosen because it was the second volume of his. She gave a great yawn and said, "How pleasant it is to spend an evening in this way. I declare, after all, there is no enjoyment like reading. How much sooner one tires of anything than of a book. When I have a house of my own, I shall be miserable if I have not an excellent library." So she knows he has a great library and is like, "I love books, totally, just like you, Mr. Darcy, marry me." But I don't think she actually does. No one made any reply. That's fair. She then yawned again, threw aside her book, and cast her eyes around the room in quest of some amusement. When hearing her brother mentioning a ball to Miss Bennet, she turned suddenly towards him and said, "By the by, Charles, are you really serious in mediating a dance at Netherfield? I would advise you before you..." Oh no, this is gonna be worse. Oh no. Can I go down here? I can, but now you can't see it. No. And that cuts off. Well, okay. Can I get it all in? Yes, I can. Okay. Determine on it to consult the wishes of the present party. I am much mistaken if there are not some among us to whom a ball would be rather a punishment than a pleasure. Yeah, I was going to say, does she mean Darcy? If you mean Darcy, cried her brother, he may go to bed, if he chooses, before it begins. But as for the ball, if it is quite a settled thing, and as soon as Nicholas has made white soup enough, I shall send round my cards. That's awesome that it's like, hey, does everybody want to party? Because I don't think Mr. Darcy wants to party. And he's like, well, he can go to bed if he wants. I should like balls infinitely better, she replied, if they were carried on in a different manner. But there is something insufferably tedious in the usual process of such a meeting. It would surely be much more rational if conversation instead of dancing made the order of the day. You can talk any other time. Like, what's wrong with dancing? Much more rational, my dear Caroline, I dare say. But it would not be near so much like a ball. It's true. It would just be people talking. Miss Bingley made no answer, and soon afterwards got up and walked around the room. Her figure was elegant, and she walked well, but Darcy, at whom it was all aimed, was still inflexibly studious. In the desperation of her feelings, she resolved on one effort more, and turning to Elizabeth, said, Miss Eliza Bennet, let me persuade you to follow my example and take a turn about the room. I assure you, it is very refreshing after sitting so long in one attitude. Boy, that would be a weird request today, to just be like, you walk around, you start strutting, like, pose, and then you're like, hey, buddy, why don't you do this too? Why don't you strut about the room? And it's like, what? Elizabeth was surprised, but agreed to it immediately. Why? Miss Bingley succeeded no less in the real object of her civility. Mr. Darcy looked up. He was as much awake to the novelty of attention in that quarter as Elizabeth herself could be. What? I don't know what that means. Oh, Kitty, he really making this hard. Novelty of attention in that quarter as Elizabeth herself could be, and unconsciously closed his book. He was directly invited to join. Please focus camera. Oh no. There we go. Unconsciously closed her book. He was directly invited to join their party, but he declined it, observing that he could imagine but two motives for their choosing to walk up and down their room together, with either of which motives his joining them would interfere. Oh, what could he mean? She was dying to know what could be his meaning, and asked Elizabeth whether she could at all understand him. Not at all, was her answer, but depend on it, he means to be severe on us, and our surest way of disappointing him will be to ask nothing about it. So, like, Miss Bingley's like, oh, what do you think he means by like, not joining us? And then Elizabeth is like, well, he probably means to, like, insult us and hate us and everything. And so, like, we can just, like, not talk about it and not do anything. And that's how to disappoint him. And it's totally far from what's going on. Miss Bingley, however, was incapable of disappointing Mr. Darcy in anything, and persevered, therefore, in requiring an explanation of his two motives. I don't know if that means, like, she's like, oh, I could never disappoint him, or if it's actually saying that Mr. Darcy does like her and she will never disappoint him. That would seem odd to me, so I think it's the former, like, she doesn't want to disappoint him. I have not the smallest objection to explaining them, said he, as soon as she allowed him to speak. You either choose this method of passing the evening because you are in each other's confidence and have secret affairs to discuss, or because you are conscious that your figures appear to the greatest advantage in walking. If the first, I should be completely in your way, and if the second, I can admire you much better as I sit by the fire. Smooth. I like that. That's awesome. I love the honesty of it. It's like, either you guys are whispering sweet nothings over there, and who am I to interfere, or you're trying to look hot for me, and I would like to admire her from away. Oh, shocking, cried Miss Bingley. I never heard anything so abominable. How shall we punish him for such a speech? Maybe it's a difference in cultures, but I don't find it abominable. Once again, I don't see anything wrong with what he's saying. I liked it. Nothing so easy, if you have but the inclination, said Elizabeth. We can all plague and punish one another. Tease him, laugh at him. Intimate as you are, you must know how it is to be done. But upon my honor, I do not. I do assure you that my intimacy has not yet taught me that. Tease calmness of temper and presence of mind. No. I feel he may defy us there. And as to laughter, we will not expose ourselves, if you please, by attempting to laugh without a subject. Mr. Darcy may hug himself. What does that mean? Mr. Darcy may hug himself. Mr. Darcy is not to be laughed at, cried Elizabeth. That is an uncommon advantage, and uncommon I hope it will continue, for it would be a great loss to me to have many such acquaintance. I dearly love a laugh. So, like, okay, I'm a little confused by that. So, she's saying, like, oh, Mr. Darcy, I can't laugh at him? Like, that's too bad. I love laughing at people. I love laughing, and I don't care if it's at people, I guess. Miss Bingley, said he, has given me credit for more than can be. The wisest and the best of men, nay, the wisest and best of their actions, may be rendered ridiculous by a person whose first object in life is a joke. What does that mean, first object in life? I don't know. Certainly, replied Elizabeth. There are such people, but I hope I am not one of them. I hope I never ridicule what is wise or good. Follies and nonsense, whims and inconsistencies do divert me, I own, and I laugh at them whenever I can. Oh yeah, okay. But these, I suppose, are precisely what you are without. I might have done the wrong voice for her. Perhaps that is not possible for anyone, but it has been the study of my life to avoid those weaknesses which often expose a strong understanding to ridicule. Such as vanity and pride. Yes, vanity is a weakness indeed, but pride, where there is a real superiority of mind, pride will be always under good regulation. What? Wait, so he's saying, oh yeah, vanity, that's not a great quality to have, but it's totally fine to be proud if there's reason to be proud of yourself. If you're a rich, tall, handsome man like me, pride is warranted and isn't worthy of being made fun of. It's like, what? Elizabeth turned away to hide a smile. Yeah, she thinking that, like, it is worth being made fun of. Your examination of Mr. Darcy is over, I presume, said Miss Bingley. And pray, what is the result? I'm perfectly convinced by it that Mr. Darcy has no defect. He owns it himself without disguise. No, said Darcy, I have made no such pretension. I have faults enough, but they are not, I hope, of understanding. My temper I dare not vouch for. It is, I believe, too little yielding, certainly too little for the convenience of the world. I cannot forget the follies and vices of others as soon as I ought. Wait, forget? Yeah, forget, okay. Nor their offenses against myself. So I guess he's saying, I hold grudges. My feelings are not puffed about with every attempt to move them. My temper would perhaps be called resentful. My good opinion, once lost, is lost forever. Interesting. That seems in line with what we've seen of him so far. So he's just saying that, yeah, I have faults, but I just try not to show them off out loud. I have a nasty temper, and I resent people, and, I can't forget, I hold grudges, I can't forget follies. I don't know what he means by my feelings are not puffed about with every attempt to move them. That seems like a good quality. That is a failing indeed, cried Elizabeth. Implacable resentment is a shade of in a character. But you have chosen your fault well. I really cannot laugh at it. You are safe from me. There is, I believe, in every disposition, a tendency to some particular evil, a natural defect, which not even the best education can overcome. And your defect is a propensity to hate everybody. And yours, he replied with a smile, is willfully to misunderstand them. Ooh, that's interesting. I like that. So she just thinks that he hates everybody. He doesn't, but I think that it's hard for him to warm up to people, and so it could be said that people are guilty before innocent with him, that he hates first and then learns to love them, as opposed to liking first and then hating. But Elizabeth is like, you willfully misunderstand people. I might hate people, but you willfully misunderstand people. That's her prejudice. So that's interesting. Do let us have a little music, cried Miss Bingley, tired of a conversation in which she had no share. Louisa, you will not mind my waking Mr. Hurst? Her sister made not the smallest objection, and the pianoforte was opened, and Darcy, after a few moments' recollection, was not sorry for it. He began to feel the danger of paying Elizabeth too much attention. So does he know that Miss Bingley's into him, and he's like, okay, I guess I was talking to her too much, and she's gonna take it out on her. But yeah, well timed. I think that ended up working. But yes, so there we go. There's a couple of chapters of Pride and Prejudice in the day. I hope that, despite the mic troubles at the beginning, that it ended up being an enjoyable time. I hope you liked it. It was fun to get back to these two after a while away. But yeah, so I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.